Hello, everyone. How's it
Hello.
going? Welcome to Rehash the Rolls on this wonderful Wednesday night. We have here Patrick, the man who is the instigator of all of my stress and nightmares, or at least 47% of it. You're not the only person, but at least like 47% of them.
47%. Wow.
Yeah.
Those are kid numbers.
Yeah.
Boosted numbers.
Because I have kids that are the other hefty portion of my nightmares. Well, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good.
January. Your birthday's coming up.
It is coming up. At an undisclosed date.
I've heard this undisclosed date before.
You have heard
I'm
this
trying to
undisclosed date. It
remember
was
exactly
entirely
what it
unintentional.
was.
I don't make a big deal about my birthday. It was totally unintentional. I realized afterwards, like, crap. I don't make a big deal about my birthday. Yes, it is coming up in an undisclosed date sometime in the future.
The only reason that I at all care is because we're the same age, and so when you're not the same age as me, I'll be like, no, we're not the same age for a few months until I'm the same age as you. Well, cool. Let's just get right into all these questions because there's like
Yeah, there's a lot.
a lot of them. So let's start. Very first question, because you haven't been on the show in a while, and a lot of stuff has happened. We're gonna skip a bit of it because some of it resolved itself. This first one, this is just for me, a general question that I'm very curious about. How much time do you spend preparing for each session?
It depends on the session. My personal philosophy is for every hour the session is going to go, I like to spend at least an equivalent hour, so at least 3 hours most of the time. And those don't have to. And most of the time, I spend closer to 8 or more. So like, in a week, and it's like it's not, but that's not that. Of course, all isn't at consecutive times. Like if you were to look at the time that I actually spend sitting down and like preparing stuff, it's probably only like an hour, total, like sitting down, making maps, making stat blocks, choosing what monsters I'm going to put into certain encounters, things like that. Most of my preparation is done just while I'm walking around and thinking, because I don't have anything else to occupy my mind besides Dungeons and Dragons. Or I'd rather not have other things occupy my mind. I'd rather it just be occupied with Dungeons and Dragons. But
Gotcha.
so I'd say in total, including all my random thoughts and stuff, it's that I write down for about 8 hours. But if it's like actual work that I put in, probably closer to like an hour and a half.
It's the statting stuff out that takes a long time, I've found.
Yeah.
All the other stuff, you can feel it out a little bit easier. Well, I just was curious because I don't have other dungeon masters that I talk to about like these sorts of things so much.
When I started D&D, it was sitting down and statting stuff took a lot longer because I just, particularly when I was learning 5e, right when I'd come home from my mission, it took a lot longer because I needed to familiarize myself with stuff more. But now that I've been doing, DMing 5e for pretty much 6 years straight, plus my dungeon master experience from when I was a teenager, it doesn't take me as long. It's just kind of a practice thing.
Well, this is the next question. This is another one for me. I think it might be one of my only other ones. Why was/is Bronislav so opposed to widespread use of magic? How much does this restriction and control spread throughout all of Mordvir? Is it more like concentrated in Barrelgrad?
It's an interesting thing. So there's actually two different religious philosophies on this. One religious philosophy, so it comes from a verse of scripture in the book of Silhana that says that magic is a tool to be used by man, not to use man. And so so the first school of religious philosophy, which is the prevalent one, that people see, is we need to restrict magic, control magic very tightly, and then the other philosophy is that people take that scripture a little bit too literally. That it's probably through mistranslation through years, and the fact that Silhana, because basically the understanding is that Silhana is either dead or asleep. No one's sure which one, and so she's not here to clarify, and so it's just these mortals who have a divine connection to her in some sense, but are trying to translate it on their own. And so the second school of thought is that for some reason we are being a little bit too literal on this. Magic doesn't necessarily need to be as tightly controlled as it is. Silhana just wants to make sure that we aren't giving into the corruption that sometimes comes with magic. Because there, are dark forces, such as Morpheus and other things that you guys have not met yet, that use the temptation of magical power, to subvert and corrupt mortals.
I appreciate your use of the word "yet."
Yet.
Very ominous word that gets used a lot.
Yeah, so that's the basic thing, is that so because Bronislav was the apparently I am quiet according to chat. Bronislav, maybe I can turn up my mic just a little bit too. But, so Bronislav, and the reason that it's like the school of sorcery is made after Bronislav. Doesn't sound like I'm coming through my mic. Let me double check that.
Oh, it definitely is. You got louder just now.
Yeah, it's definitely coming. It's definitely, it's coming. I've set it up that way. But
I've just turned him
anyway.
up on OBS a little bit, and I'll turn myself down a little bit.
Okay. Bronislav is the patron saint of magic. In Silhana's holy army, he was the one in charge of the arcane and the magic users. And so that's why it's, his name is often associated with the restriction of magic, even though it really didn't come from him. He just, his main thing was making sure that people weren't getting corrupted by magic following Silhana's orders, and he lived after that. Maybe he got a little crazy after Silhana left. Maybe he didn't.
That's kind of how it came across a little bit when he appeared to Corbett and was talking to him and was like, you got to be careful with this, fake thing you've got there. Like, be careful, or else you kind of like, I think he was saying like the further you go down that path, like the less that I can help you, sort of a thing of like, there's a spectrum of like magic and Bronislav, and if you move towards magic, you move away from him.
Well, and take that, and I'm not revealing anything, but like, just so you can understand Bronislav's thought process. What do we know about Eladin? What is Eladin? Eladin could easily be one of these corrupting forces that Silhana was warring against, because it's not like this magic, the warlock magic isn't innate in Corvette. In that conversation that Corvette had with Eladin, it became, I was trying to make it clear that Corvette's magic comes from Eladin. If at any point his connection with Eladin gets severed, he's going to lose all that power. He will basically be a level 0 character. And so Bronislav wasn't necessarily saying magic is bad. He was saying he doesn't trust Eladin. And, I'm not saying that Eladin isn't trustworthy, because it could just be easily that Bronislav isn't the trustworthy one. But from Bronislav's point of view, he was like, that spear was in the cave for a reason. And I don't trust it. So.
Gotcha. Well, always an interesting thing when characters have conversations with other things and by themselves in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
It's sketchy, and I assume it will be problematic later. Cool. Now we're gonna move. This is more to Yetzlava and the mosaic and stuff. This is from Mike. How long has the witch in the mosaic been there?
Several hundred years. I don't have an exact time frame in my head, but a really long time. She's just been in there with the purpose of, the sole purpose and the intentions of gathering soul energy for when Morpheus returns. So it's 100% possible that the moment Morpheus disappeared, because Silhana and Morpheus disappeared at the same time, she started, a plot appropriate amount of centuries. She went into she created the mosaic, enchanted it, and went into it to start harvesting these souls. So a very long time.
Makes sense. Things are old. Gotta be sneaky, especially when the town doesn't know the origin.
Exactly.
This continuing on that from Lil Miss Fodder, were the people on the mosaic images of the people who were sucked in?
Yeah, so the people who were in the mosaic were images of people who had recently been sucked in, and the longer they'd been there, the more faded their images would become. until they disappeared when their souls were gone. And then so
Okay.
the people who were so the people who were on the mosaic were the most recent acquisitions, and if you weren't on the mosaic, you were gone.
Got it. Okay, because I was wondering about that of like, how big is this mosaic? How big are these people? Because if she's been doing this to groups of people at a time, I think there'd be like hundreds of people on the wall. It didn't seem like that when you were talking about it. Okay, they disappear after a while. Oh. Continuing through this. This is another one from Loma's fodder. If Albert wasn't dead, what would he like? What would the elven woman Yetslava looked like to him?
I'm pretty sure the name is Alistair.
Is it Alistair? Dang it!
So I'm pretty sure it was Alistair, but I mean Albert is good. But
because I've seen Oliver, Albert, and Alistair. Sorry, Luke.
But, I mean, that's an interesting question because technically, if you look in, the reason that Drith is able to summon Alistair is due to his feature from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. That's not what it's called. Tasha. Anyway, Tasha's. You know what I'm talking. Well, you know the book I'm talking about. But Tasha's. And so
I think it is Cauldron of
where did I put my copy? It is. It is Cauldron of Everything. But anyway, so if we look at that, I mean, a find familiar isn't necessarily an animal. A found familiar is kind of a spirit that takes on the form of an animal, and that might be slightly different with a druid. Like, let me just double confirm that before we give a firm answer on this question. I
think.
Yeah, it's a fae instead of a beast. Yeah. So technically, Alistair is a fae spirit, and so technically Alistair is a fae spirit, and so Alistair. So Alistair, probably wouldn't actually be affected by the magic in the same way that everyone else was affected. He probably
wouldn't be a baby fae.
Mm-hmm. He would probably see Yetslova for what Yetslova actually was.
Which is her actual form that elven form, or is she something else entirely? Okay.
Yeah, she was that elf.
Yeah, I remember seeing a question earlier of like, when Alistair have just seen a baby owl.
If Drith saw Alistair saw Yetslova through Alistair's eyes, Drith would probably have seen Yetslova in the, seeing Yetslova for what she was instead of the child. But unfortunately, Alistair died before. I mean, he'll come back, I'm sure, but he was currently incapacitated.
He was in another spot. All right. Moving on to this other question. A lot of this is particularly about last week at this point. What was the special attack from the tendrils that you never got to use? Could the boss have leached life from the players using them?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the special attack, they got to use it, just not on the players. They used it instead on they used it instead on the victims. The victims had a special ability in their stat block that said they don't resist the constrict attack from tendrils. So that it was the constrict attack that when it dealt damage with the constrict attack, it just restored life to the to Yetslova equal to the amount of damage done. But because the victims weren't resisting the constrict attack, it just healed Yetslova for the full amount of health the victims had. So, but yeah, the boss, it was fully intended the boss was going to leech life from you guys, and it just didn't get to do it because Drith discovered his chilling touch.
Which, I mean, I'm glad that didn't happen. It was a bit rough in a couple of places.
It was a rough, and like, so I might need to tone down future boss fights.
Oh no, boss fights should be like that. Yeah. If we're fighting a group of bandits in the woods, maybe not so much like that, but boss fights for sure can totally be like that.
Definitely, yeah. So.
What was it? So that's the first like puzzle-y dungeon sort of thing that we've been through. All the other ones have been a little bit more straightforward of like there's bad guys in these rooms and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So what was the thought process and inspiration behind that, it being that way?
I like to try to mix it up and looking at the other dungeons we'd done, seeing that they were more straightforward, just go, 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 because I was trying to get everyone comfortable with each other and comfortable with each other's characters. Now I felt like it was appropriate at that time to include puzzles, because I love putting puzzles into my dungeons. It's a little bit harder when you're doing it online and you can't all be looking at the same thing. So I'd like to include more puzzles, but the thought process is just, okay, cool, I haven't done a puzzle in a while, I really want to do some puzzles, and I love riddles, and so that was the process. That's what I wanted to do. So,
were you surprised at how quickly we got the answers?
I was very surprised with how quickly because, and like, no offense to my home group, sometimes it takes my home group a really long time to get riddles. And so I was actually very surprised at how quickly you were just like, bam, answer to this riddle. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Well, I guess I gotta find harder riddles next time.
Oh no, please don't do that. I was actually like legitimately stumped on the book one until you did like the second half of it.
Yeah, I realized because I had an alternate for every riddle in case you couldn't get the first part, and I realized I had flip-flopped. Like the first one was supposed to be kind of like more difficult, and the second one was supposed to be easier, and I realized I had like flip-flopped the answers for the book riddle, the riddles for the book riddle, and so like I accidentally put the wrong one in the wrong spot, and so
I thought the second half was what gave it away. That was the easier
I mean, yeah,
part
it was the second half that gave it away, but so
cool.
Maybe I'm crazy.
I have never been a really big puzzle dungeon person, and I think part of that is because I did not grow up playing a lot of video games. Because there's the Legend of Zelda games, it's a bunch of puzzles. Like all the temples are full of and dungeons are full of puzzles, and like same thing with tons and tons of games. And so my first real introduction to a lot of this concept was with Critical Role, which seems to be a little bit more realism almost, where they don't do a ton of puzzles and stuff. And so to me it's like, I'm a big baddie monster dragon. Why would I make a lock on my front door that takes me 15 minutes to undo every time, where I have to like go to another room and get a key, and then I have to go over here and get another thing? Like, why does that make sense? Why would anyone do that? I don't have puzzles in my house to unlock my doors. Why would they? So I very rarely do it. I'm trying to get better at that.
And it just
big part of the game.
Just depends on the party and what they like to see. So
all right, next question. This is from Mike as well. Are the souls that had been consumed gone forever, or have they been returned? Returned to where? I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, I guess it kind of depends. Like, because basically she was just storing their energies to give to Morpheus, and so the real question would be, did she have a contingency plan to get them to Morpheus in case she died, or did she not? And so they would go, they would not, they're not gone forever, but they would be used in some purpose. Either they would pass on to the next life, or they'd be passed on to somewhere for Morpheus to use at some point, like, yeah, a mini fridge. So basically, so they're not gone. The souls, the soul energy is still there very much. It's just a question of where they are.
And do you know, or have you not decided?
Oh, I know.
Okay.
I know where they are.
Be determined in a plot appropriate amount of time. Right, now we get to questions about the drama at the end. From Little Miss Fodder to both of us. What are your thoughts on how the session ended?
So the session ended. Hey, that session. It was good. It was fueled by a lot of raw emotion, real emotion. But it was good. It was. I feel like it is going to be a great opportunity for the party to finally unite, because the party's been working together, but they've never really been truly united. And this is, and I'm not saying that they're going to next session instantly be united, but it's going to be, it's definitely the catalyst that's going to help the party get united over the sessions of the, over the events of the next few sessions, knowing what is coming up. So I liked the role play. I liked the drop, because that was the way I describe this to people is, you know, sure we're playing. I mean, we're doing an improvisation show where the improvisation is aided by dice and rules, and so yeah, we're playing a game, but at the same time, you know, we are putting on a show for people, you know, improv wise, and so, but so it was a great improv moment. I'm just very interested to see where the party will end up, because I'm not even 100% certain what will happen with the party next week.
We did have a bit of a talk about things afterwards.
Yeah.
But, you know, I am such an overthinker that it's been almost a full week at this point, and now I'm just like, is that still the thought? Is that still, you know, are we still all feeling the same about it, or has that changed for different people? So just because we don't all constantly talk throughout the week, so I don't know. But I
have been in contact with most people, not everyone, but I have been in contact with most people, so I know what the ultimate plan hopefully is. But we'll see. It could change.
It can change.
So I do plan
day of, like, as stuff starts going. It could change
that. I do plan to start talking to everyone, be like, okay, let's make sure we're all on the same page, so we know what's happening when we get in. And then, you know, it could change day of, because someone decides that no, that's not what my character would really do. Wait, my character's going to do this instead. So
sometimes it's hard to plan ahead of time.
It's like that's kind of it really is, you know.
For me, I really liked it all. I mean, it was very much a adrenaline rush of like, oh my gosh, what is going on? So because I listened back to it yesterday. I didn't watch like all of the dungeon stuff again or anything. I just went to that last like half hour right after we got out and listened from there to the end. And I was just like, gosh, everything happened so quickly and out of nowhere. And it really, it made me feel kind of bad. I was like, oh my gosh, I just like attacked him just like right out of the gate. Like, yeah, he was kind of bugging me or whatever, but I was so awful to him. I was like, oh, I was just so sad.
Well, and knowing things that we know about what is going to be happening, I don't feel like Jelania's reaction was totally uncalled. I feel like Jelania's reaction makes total sense, but no, because I know kind of what's going on in Jelania's mind, and everyone else doesn't. And so to an outside viewer, probably looked like a totally uncalled for attack, but when you know what's going on inside a character's mind, those kind of things make more sense. And so, like, I loved it. It was a great improvised moment because, you know, like when I interviewed everyone, I was like, I want to be telling a darker, grittier, more emotional story than the average Dungeons and Dragons campaign, and I feel like this is, you know, that is definitely helping us be in the right direction. So
I will also say, I did not throw the first punch. I attempted to push. I did not attempt to do any damage the entire time. I was not trying to inflict any damage. That was attempted to be inflicted on me, which I kind of find that a little bit funny. But it
was just a whole person spell. The way I kind of
he tried to swing at me later.
He did. That's right. I'd forgotten that. But
well, Miss Fodders, next question: what was your favorite part of the episode, if that was not?
That's tough. Honestly, I really liked the boss fight. That was a great moment. But I liked, it's just a rewarding feeling when you spend, because I spent I will be honest, I spent like 3 hours playing that boss fight. And so like when you sit down and you are like making a stat block for a boss and it's minions that are there, and you're like, okay, how are this all going to interact with each other? And then you just watch it all come together and watch it work exactly how you want it to do, and see the look on your players' faces where it's like, they don't think the fight is hopeless, but you can tell that they're definitely struggling. That's just the ultimate feeling, because, you know, my personal philosophy as a DM is I want to make a challenge. I want to make every encounter either story related or a challenge, or sometimes both, you know. And so, you know, it's a few years ago when I was running a one shot for my dad, and at the end of the one shot, my dad was like, Patrick, you couldn't hurt a fly if you wanted to at the end of the one shot, because like they didn't feel threatened at all, and I was just like, hurtful. And so to see that this, to have that be, where I to have to see an encounter, every time now after I have an encounter where it's a challenge, it just makes me feel so good. It makes me feel like I'm doing my job. And so
yeah, it's a tough balance to strike for sure, because you want to make it tough, but you don't want to make it extremely overwhelming. Like a couple weeks ago in performance check, they walked into kind of an ambush, and Nick's character died like instantly, like not just down, but like full dead. And that was the first player death that we've had the entire campaign. And I like the second it happened, I was like, oh, done. Like I made this way too hard.
Well, if Artyom had not gone Angel when he did, Slova would have killed Corbett. Like it just that was what was gonna happen. Like I was fully intending cast a spell that would have spelled Corbett's death, but Artyom went Angel and became the bigger threat, and so Slova had to change targets. But like exactly, like there should be the threat of death, but not necessarily the certainty of death.
In regards to Artyom, because he is now level 5 cleric, he does have access to Revivify, and I think as a life cleric that's something he always has prepared. The issue is then the super expensive diamonds, and in the economy that you have, how likely is it that we are going to get access to these?
I do plan, and it's an interesting thing. I don't believe resurrection in games should be easy in Dungeons and Dragons games. I don't believe, in a computer Dungeons and Dragons, I believe that resurrection should be easy. But in a tabletop RPG, death is not an experience I believe should be taken lightly. It should be a transformative experience for that player. Like, again, like, and so like, deaths, so, I will provide you access to those things, but it's not going to be easy. You will get, but you will have diamonds. You will get access to them, and probably not the way that you guys are thinking that you're going to be getting access to them. Not your preferred way of getting access to them, though.
That diamond ring that Artyom keeps talking about, how much gold is that worth?
It's probably worth like 1,000 or so. If you
okay.
decide to take the diamond in that and use that diamond, you could. But
Artyom willing to resurrect the dead character is a good bring up. Currently, I imagine
right now probably not.
Probably
but
not.
It would probably depend on who that character is and what had just happened. But right now, probably not.
I will say, like, my favorite part of the session was Artyom's outburst and him leaving specifically, because it made so much sense. Like, he has always just wanted to be the good guy. He has wanted to like help people and uplift people, and aside from the occasional fights that he's had with Jelania and then that one with Kadiak, he's basically been an advisor and a helper for everyone. Just like, all right, we can do this, we can be better and stuff. And all of a sudden he gets piled on a little bit. And he's he comes off of like, I just saved someone's life, like literally someone would be dead if I hadn't have done these things. Great, awesome. Okay, why are you mad at me again? Why are you doing this to me again? And it was just this very like
it was a raw emotional moment, honestly. And again, it comes back to the fact that we know what's going on in Jelania's head, and they don't.
That'll probably change a little bit next week. I expect, you said something about like, I don't know if this was on stream or if it was just to us as players, that out of everyone in the party, it's possible that Jelania's had the least of her secrets like come out. I would not be surprised if by the end of next week, like 99% of everything in her backstory is like out there. Wouldn't be surprised.
We'll see.
The last question is from me to you. When an intense or emotional roleplay moment breaks out of nowhere, what is it like for you to sit there and watch it happen?
It's rough at times, because it can be rough, because sometimes you just want to like, because the purpose obviously of a DM is to help guide the story, But like, you just have to remind yourself sometimes guiding the story is just sitting back and listening and seeing what happens. Like, it could be rough, like watching your favorite TV show and seeing your favorite characters going through this rough, idiotic time brought upon by their own stupidity. Not saying that this is necessarily brought upon by people's own stupidity, but like, not saying that at all, but it can be rough. Like, it's just, it was, this last session was kind of hard because I just thought, because you want to make sure that the party is going to be friends in the long run, but at the same time, you recognize that friendships don't, one, form overnight, unless, except in very rare circumstances, but two, every friendship has its, difficult moments that only serve to make the bond stronger. And so definitely with, 10 plus years of DMing experience, it's a lot easier. Well, okay, it's not easier. I just have more self-control. And so I'm willing to sit and just let it happen. It's because it's tough because Dungeons and Dragons is a collaborative storytelling effort, but at the same time, it's like, this is my story. I don't want to necessarily let the players screw it up, but at the same time, recognizing, no, it's their story too, that they're helping that we're all telling together. So
an exercise in trust.
It's an exercise in trust and hoping that, because I have a friend who, he used to DM a lot, and now he doesn't DM because he just, his players took the story in a direction he didn't want to go, and it was telling a story he didn't want to tell. So it's a balance, because obviously there's some stories I don't want to tell, as a DM and storyteller. And so if the game moves in a direction of a story I don't want to tell, I'm going to be like, guys, this isn't the story that I want us telling on my channel. So we either need to rein it in or need to finish. But at the same time, it's a game, we're all playing with friends, and I don't want to be the butthole who is like, sorry guys, I'm not having fun anymore. So since I am I'm the glue that's keeping that holds I'm the reason you all come together every other week. If I wasn't here to run the encounters and roll the opposing dice, then there'd be no reason to get together. Yeah. So it's hard because, and particularly with Ready to Roll, because Ready to Roll, it's not just another D&D campaign. It's a story I'm trying to tell that I do have certain motifs and messages I hope to get across over the course of the story. I'm not going to slam you in the face with them, because I believe that's bad writing and storytelling in general. If you slam your audience with your message, it has to be subtle and people have to learn it as they're going. And so, but at the same time, it's like, I am willing to adapt based upon what the players do, because it's an improvisational, collaborative storytelling effort. So
I think the fact that there is a decent amount of communication amongst the group members is helpful. Yes. I was not as afraid to go to that place with Artyom last week, because there have been so many conversations out of game between Adam and I about, was that okay? Is this fine? How do you feel about this? And a lot of mutual, okay, no, this is sense. This is totally great. I know you don't hate me in real life, this sort of stuff. So it was not as much fear. And I haven't had conversations like that with everybody in the group. So I would be a little nervous to do similar things to other people, maybe.
It's that's important to it, is recognizing that, you're playing a character, and I'm never, and that the other person is never doing the thing intentionally to hurt you as a person. Learning to have learning to balance, and put a divide between, this is my character and this is me. Right now I'm being the storyteller, because as a real person, I would never want to put any of you in the situations I'm putting you in. But as a storyteller, I think it's hilarious at times to put you in those situations. It's fun. It can be, great. So that it's hard because it requires a lot. I've seen groups dissolve because people haven't been able to put aside personal differences for the sake of the game and sake of the group. I've seen people who take the characters, have it be a little bit too personal, which I don't think is going to be the problem with our group. We've all, because of the communication that all of our players have with each other, it helps, and it makes those type of raw emotional moments possible. So
more tears upcoming. Confirmed? I think so.
Confirmed. More tears, yes.
Right.
More tears.
Thank you for all those answers and stuff. Is there anything else that you think that we ought to talk about? I know we focused in a lot on, everything that's happened in last session.
That was the big thing. I mean, no, nothing that comes to mind. That was the big thing. Was the know that there are more. There's more stuff coming. More intensity coming in. We're not slowing down. We are only building up. More and more intense stuff is coming, and it will just it'll get grittier, it'll get darker, but my players are ready to roll, so we're good.
Oh boy. I've been considering, am I gonna have, because I cried last week. I don't know if I'm gonna cry next week because I've been thinking over things so much. Maybe I will, though. I don't know.
I hope not. And don't take this the wrong way. I hope I make you cry. So.
I expect that you will. Just knowing, what could happen because of what is in the backstory and stuff, I have so much fear about what you're gonna do. Cool. Well, everybody here, come to watch Ready to Roll next week. Around this time, go to Patrick's channel, Morgantho6. You can also just come here. It'll be hosted, but you won't be able to interact with us weirdos in chat, so you should come next week. We're going to say bye to Patrick, and then we'll switch over to talking to Nick.
Bye, guys. Bye. See you later.